We're the same.
We've secretly replaced the cemetery board with Folgers crystals.
There you go. So, let's take a look at the minutes, and I had some comments. I have problems understanding some of this, actually. So I want to go over the big substantive things first. And the first thing is under the division report. What online form were we talking about? And what was that whole paragraph about? It was about the annual report, which is what I...
These are two things. Number one, as we announced last time, we do have an online form for submission of annual reports. And what says not quantified is that I didn't report on how many we had received.
Why don't we just, okay, so the new form, did we report on this last time that the form was online?
Not only did I
in the last minutes?
You mean the previous
Yes.
minutes? Yes,
Okay.
we did.
Okay, so what is that?
The Kaplan, yeah. I believe.
Mr. Polishuk reported that the division has received feedback on the new online form.
No, that is not what it means.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't understand this paragraph.
I will dictate what it should actually say,
That would
and
be
then we will
great.
have it. I reported that we have received online submissions. I reported that we have received online submissions via the new online form, period, full stop.
Somewhere you should say annual report.
Annual report form.
Yeah,
Online annual report
and how
form.
about that's it for the whole paragraph?
No, there's something separate. I don't know if you want to record this.
matter.
The other thing is that the paper form, not the annual report form, people have pointed out some small things that need to be tinkered with, and we're going to do that. We are going to do that for next year.
All right, that substantively, you've got that. Okay, next issue, under the vandalism report, we have Whispering Maples that needs to be broken out, right, into a separate heading.
Not necessarily. It's a vandalism application.
No, that's under the report.
We usually,
Okay,
when we do them, we do them
you do,
right under.
motion's made underneath.
Yeah. The vandalism, the only tinker I would have is to have the vandalism report first, the last paragraph first.
Okay, all right. Good. Fiscal roll, the motioning. All right, I don't think we did a first motion and a second motion. I think we merged, and correct me if I'm wrong, I may be not remembering this correctly. I think we talked about the first motion and then added the contingencies to it. So they're not two separate motions. As it's currently written, we wouldn't have any of the material that we put in the first motion as having been moved. Second, and voted on.
Not having watched the tape, I actually remember it being two separate things. I could be totally wrong.
I don't remember.
All right.
But it doesn't matter.
It matters to get the right motion.
No, but if the motion or motions were made, if we break it up into two and that's wrong, then that's wrong. If we combine them but they have different branches, it doesn't really matter whether you unanimously move once or twice because the result is the
We didn't write
same.
that the first motion was voted on. All right? So I don't have an approval for what it was.
Sure we didn't. Motion made, seconded, unanimously adopted.
The second one.
That's the second.
Oh.
You see?
Made, seconded. So let's just. I think you're right. We should combine the two.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what happened. We didn't have two separate motions on the floor. All right? So
So
what we
two
need to do is
parentheses
merge.
one.
We just need to merge it. We just say, motion made, not second motion. Motion
Yeah.
made, second and unanimously approved to improve, and then move the other stuff in there.
There, I got it.
All right. So there are also a lot of syntactical errors in this. If that's a word, syntactical. I hope it is. A great word. Which I bet you caught, like, all of them.
I'll hand this to Chet's editorial.
All right.
Rather than substantive.
Is there anything else on this? All right, so what, there are significant changes to be made, which we're not going to see. So what I would suggest, or what I'll motion, is that motion to approve contingent upon the director's review of the minutes, finding them in accord with the conversations we've had here today. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay. Legislation and regulation, Mr. Malillo.
Okay, they've been a little busy across the street. Some activity in one house, for example, number 5 in the list, allowing friends or relatives of a veteran to, how's that possible?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It's like, there's no fun.
To inform the cemetery about what, to take remains and deal with cremated remains of a veteran. That has passed the Senate. It's still pending in the Assembly. Now we got down to number 8 in the list. The bill that would clarify that related cemetery operations are under the sole jurisdiction of the State Cemetery Board. They're doing something unusual. They're adding, there's movement in the Senate, and then they're adding a new Assembly bill, even though there's already a companion bill, and there's a new person presenting that bill, Assembly Person Paulin. So there's now 3 bills.
And they're identical.
Yeah, right down as far as I can tell. But that one did pass the Senate as well, pending in the Assembly.
I'm going to read the sponsor's memo. Can you just explain why this is necessary?
I believe this is a nice act, and I don't know, Dave, if you want to jump in, but my understanding is that it's intended to demonstrate to all levels of government, including municipalities, that cemeteries are under our jurisdiction. And we have primary jurisdiction over what happens with our cemeteries. I don't know if that's a fair.
Why is that unclear?
Because we see on local levels and frequently where municipalities try to intervene in cemetery operations and actually prevent cemeteries from carrying on their duties, which are to conduct burials of remains in various forms. And there's been several items of litigation over the last 10 years where municipalities and cemeteries have been locking heads. And we are a quasi-government agency in the sense that when cemeteries fail, they become the wards of municipalities in which they're located. So they rise to the level of basically a school district, and that the state has a responsibility and a superior regulation of cemeteries. And just to answer the question on the bills, the former chair of corporations has been moved to a new committee.
Okay.
So he has struck the enacting clause of those bills, so it's still live, but it's not really live.
Okay.
And then Assemblywoman Paulin, who is now the chair of the corporations committee, has decided to pick up those bills. So you'll see a few of them over the next few weeks.
Okay.
That'll happen.
So it's not currently stated in law that cemetery operations are under the sole jurisdiction of the State Cemetery Board?
Not to that extent, no.
I can give you an example.
What can that be?
Well, there's always overlapping jurisdictions. A lot of areas, state and localities regulate various business entities. And probably one of the most concerning was when one of our cemeteries wanted to chop down trees to clear more land, and the municipality said, no, you can't do that, and tried to stop them. And luckily the court in that case said, no, that's what cemeteries do. You can't expect them to clear their land the minute they take possession. So you've got to let them clear their land as they progress. So that's an example of where.
That's an excellent example. What is constant?
Okay. Thank you.
And the commenter on that is David Fleming.
Sorry.
Who's nice. No, who's extra.
Cemeteries.
Yeah. Pleasure to have you as always. All right.
I didn't
what
quite
else you got,
finish.
Tony?
There was more.
But wait.
No, you waved. That's it.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, that was number 8. Let's see, number 12 has also passed just the Senate. This ups the penalty for cemetery desecration as a Class C felon. D, number 13 has passed the Senate. This deals with the resale of cemetery markers, flags, other memorabilia that relate to veterans. And finally, I think this is finally, yes. All right. A new bill has been introduced. This is the last one, number 21 on the list. That would require that when a cemetery is within 180 days of becoming an abandoned cemetery, that notice be given to the municipality by the cemetery and to us, and that we, within 60 days of that, or within 120 days of that, notify the municipality of the cemetery standing, finances, et cetera, board, and work towards avoiding an abandonment. And that's only in the Senate. And it's new, so no action yet.
So this is 60 days, you said 120?
Yeah, we're going to have 60 days. All right, 60 days to report, so it would leave 120 days from the 180 days that it started.
The one house so far.
Yep.
What happens, Mr. Melillo, when there isn't any cemetery board existing? They're so old that they disappeared.
I don't think the divisions come across that. There's almost always one person who's acting on behalf of the cemetery. Unfortunately, when there's one person, there's a question
not a board.
of right.
It's not a board, right.
What authority that person has. But I don't think the cemetery's ever had a situation where there was nobody.
Let me clarify. I'm unaware of a situation of a cemetery regulated by us
Yeah, that's what I was
where that situation has occurred. There are plenty of cemeteries in the state where there's been nobody in charge and no one to care for them for many, many years. Those are typically held as private land, not by some type of cemetery corporation.
It's probably a private or family cemetery.
or it hasn't been active since we came into existence.
Thank you, Tony.
Sure.
And since you've spoken, I guess I can talk to your comments for the day.
You have 4 more shopping days to submit your annual report if you are a cemetery watching this. If people need more time on the annual report, we will grant an extension of 30 days, no questions asked. If you need more time than that, please explain why you need said extension. That's it.
It's very important. Thank you, Louis. Chad,
Oh, wow,
vandalism report.
fast. For the current fiscal year ending March 31st, vandalism fees collected were $222,289. Applications granted totaled $886,396. Applications pending total $1,815,561. Of applications granted, 2 were for vandalism totaling $21,981. 31 applications for restoration of hazardous monumentation totaled $864,415.
Thank you. All right, we've got seven applications pending before us. 6 of them are for dangerous and 1 is abandoned. Do we have any comments on the dangerous monument applications? That's applications 1 through 6.
Excuse me.
Anything unusual? No. I saw nothing.
On the Vestal Cemetery
Yeah.
memo, there's a reference to Mitchellsville Cemetery Association under first paragraph
Things for you to sign.
of the memo.
That was an oversight on my part.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just,
It was from a different one.
Yeah, I figured that too. Well, you mentioned, just because I want to prove that I read them, Mitchellsville did have a lifetime guarantee on and to me that said, oh, I wonder how big the operation is and what that really means.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But that was interesting.
The contractor, in fact, has promised to live forever.
If that works, I'm going to start engaging in that occupation. All right, so with respect to applications 1 through 6, can I have a motion?
I move to approve those applications.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right,
So just a word to those watching out there in TV land on these. We are not going to be paying these in full upfront. We're going to be giving you a 25% down payment, which is consistent with other state contracts. If there are any issues with this, the applicant should feel free to give us a call. But that's what we're starting with.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Louis. Tanner Shandaken,
What is this another?
this is the abandoned application.
Right, we have another thing. Sorry. Carry on.
Essentially, a fence and a couple mowers, some equipment.
This is Shandaken Rural, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I guess so. Any comments on that? Comments or controversies? Nope. All right.
Some.
Tony.
I know.
Okay, what you got?
There is a little information missing. I think we've gotten a little lax with these. The regulation 200.11 requires that an application contain a certification from the municipality of the current status of the cemetery with respect to abandonment, the funds of the cemetery and investment income therefrom, donations if any, whether it sells lots or graves, or performs interments or cremations, and the annual number and total revenue. And this is, from what I can see, an active cemetery. They actually
is.
propose, there's language in there that they've made resolutions to sell graves.
Yep.
So
And
that
they do
information,
have existing rights of interment for sure.
I mean, situations where it's just dormant, I can understand why we wouldn't have this, but this is an active cemetery, so we
Wow,
would have some.
well,
connection.
that's very important, and I just totally spaced that, to be honest with you. We need that information. Do we have it?
Len's not here.
I don't think that was provided.
All right.
The first pass on this, they hadn't actually accepted the town. We didn't have a resolution from the town.
I was going to ask you about
We
that.
concentrated on that as far as,
We did get one.
we did. The town actually met and resolved to accept it. But we didn't get that other.
So we have that language that the cemetery board shall not approve such application unless the municipality acknowledges responsibility for restoration, future care, etc. I mean, that's usually in the order, right? As well.
Yeah.
In the order? No, it's in the package that's submitted in connection with the order.
Okay.
not
Okay.
in the order
Right. It's in the package, right? And the other thing is, I noticed that it looked like the cemetery was trying to sign its resolution in 2012. The memo from land indicates it wasn't taken over until 2015.
There was a. Okay,
was
I can
a-
explain that. There was a
Yeah.
miss. You want me to do it? You want to do it? You were involved in this one.
Well, I was thinking on this as I was driving out this morning.
It was the misburial.
There was a misburial, and actually that led to the abandonment of this cemetery, really, where a mistake was made. They had to correct a burial. The cemetery didn't really have the funds to do it without invading their PM. And everybody kind of stuck tight and held their guns, and the cemetery board, the board at the time, walked away. I think there was 2 members of the board that stuck around to see this thing through. So the initial, the resolution from the board was in 2012. It was in limbo for, I think, 2, maybe 3 years.
The town initially refused to take it, not because they weren't going to take responsibility, but to try to force the cemetery to clean up its own mess before they took it. And there was some back and forth during that period.
And in the cemetery's defense, it wasn't for lack of trying on their part.
No.
It was really not the. I mean, the misburial was the cemetery's fault. Failing to fix it was probably more the responsibility of the lot owners than anyone else.
Correct. And then the final question is, since they took it over in 2015, looks like summer of 2015, why did they wait so long to come to us for more money?
That's not uncommon.
Right.
I don't know.
I'm speculating, but they probably inherited some equipment and it's no longer good.
Okay.
So what do we do about the information that we need?
Can it come back?
Can it be approved contingent, or I'm sure someplace in the case folder, well, I shouldn't say that. I may be able to find, go
It
ahead.
should be part of the board's deliberation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All right.
How
Table
much money is that?
18,000.
We're not doing that.
Nope.
And Mike, do you have anything on whispering? It's pretty trivial. Didn't you wrote that up? Did we not bring that?
That,
There's-
yes.
There was, what was it?
Agenda item.
It's,
Yeah, that was,
I got nothing on it.
I don't know. There's an oversight. Well, let me just explain what it is. 350, right, Mike? 250 or 350?
$256.
Right. The cost of the processor ended up coming in slightly higher. It's going to cost $256 more than anticipated. Again, our plan was not to ask you guys for more money, but
Right.
just to agree that they could spend the extra $256 on the processor and any additional without prejudice to seeking more money later on.
Yeah,
We just screwed up
why do they
the-
need our approval to spend money? that they-
Because this is one of the things that was listed in the different.
Right, no,
categories.
I-
Well, the short answer is, I don't want Fiscal giving us a hard time that this is a deviation from what you guys approved.
But the processor was already something we approved, right, in the electrical work.
Yeah.
So all you're saying is that.
That
we
you're
want to
spending more
assure-
money for it.
But we said that we would adjust the money later,
For one specific thing that we presented
which
last
was
month.
included. It just.
It
was
did not
costing-
include the processor, it included the electrical work. This
The
is for
processor is different.
processor
Separate
itself.
part.
it was
Yes.
listed separately with an estimate.
We didn't have that last month, or I would
Okay.
put it together with the other thing.
Well, if you really want to create a trail on this, we ought to have that.
We'll
before.
draft a new
Yeah,
order.
just draft it and put it on there, and then we have something to report.
Does this need to get paid this month? Because if it does, then we can run it through an order during the break. Lincoln slide? Okay, so we'll do it next month.
Okay.
We need to make the $256
Right. Right.
per month.
Okay.
The rest of the bills get paid.
Yeah. All right. Elmwood Cemetery.
There might be, by the way, just so you know, there might be something else that comes up in the interim, and then we'll just fold that all together.
Sure. Yeah, and then we'll. Elmwood Cemetery land sale. Somebody want to present this for us?
Mike, you want to do it?
So Elmwood Cemetery is, wants approval to put in or to give a right-of-way or sell a right-of-way to a multi-use trail group. They want to use, it looks like roughly 1,000 feet of existing cemetery road to allow people access through. They're not going to substantially change it. They're going to put up a couple of signs, and they're going to seal the roadway. The benefit to the cemetery is $25,600.
It's fountain money.
Question. So this road, this isn't used for access for the cemetery? For vehicular access?
The existing cemetery road.
So what happens when it becomes a bike path?
Where's the updated map?
Did you guys, I sent that to you guys, hoping you guys would point out where.
We had an updated map. I thought you printed that out.
The only thing I printed out.
We've got someone from the cemetery we can call.
No, we have physically an updated map that we could show you what it is, but we didn't print that out.
From what I could see, it's this road. It's identified on here, St. Joseph Cemetery, below structures. Right.
No, there was something that, there was
All
something.
right, well, notwithstanding where it's
Here,
located.
does this help?
Yeah,
That's why I think there's a structure there.
all right.
And it-
Guys,
this adjoins
hold on
the
one
two
sec.
roads. Sorry.
No, that's all right. You know, it goes somewhere, that, I do have other questions about that.
this.
I want to see how it relates to the plots and all that. But is the road used for vehicular access now?
Is it a road or a path, a
Yeah.
walking path?
My understanding is a road, but
Okay, so we don't know.
we can get Cindy on the phone, she knows this,
Oh.
or we can get a representative from the cemetery.
Yeah, I'd rather have, why don't we get Cindy?
They know there's a different rep. We just got an email. Give me a minute. And let me see if I can find the email. from
Take
Cindy.
advantage to see who had the temerity to dial my cell phone
I'm
number.
gonna call Cindy.
I thought we were calling the rep and not Cindy.
Cindy.
Dan said Cindy.
You want to call Cindy? So call Cindy.
Yeah, but, yeah, until we
Go ahead.
get our ducks in a row.
Cindy.
Hey, Cindy, it's the Cemetery Board. You're in public session. This concerns Elmwood.
Okay.
Elmwood, how are you, Cindy?
Okay. Good. How are you?
Groovy, thank you. So, Elmwood Cemetery, this road right now, does that permit vehicular access?
Yes, it does. And I just had them change it. Again, they revised the revision to ensure that funerals take priority and that the cemetery equipment and visitors, the lot owners and visitors can have access with motor vehicles.
But isn't that, is that cemetery, I mean, its hours of operation must be large. How do you know when somebody with the vehicle is going to come on the path?
Well, it's open during daytime hours, closes at dusk.
So it's not closed off to cars at any particular time?
Well, the general public, no, they don't lock the gate. No.
I'm just confused about
lot owners travel it. That's their main entrance right now. It goes from the front to the back of the cemetery.
So how can it be used for a bike path then?
They're going to allow.
Well,
It's kind of a joint use.
it's an easement.
The cemetery doesn't generate that kind of traffic in.
No, it's not a terribly busy cemetery, but I did have them revise it to say the use of any motorized vehicles except by emergency services and by the municipality for maintenance services expressly prohibited. That lot owners visiting graves, cemetery, and cemetery equipment need to travel that road, and funeral processions must take a priority over all activity on the road. I just had them do that because my concern when I saw no motorized vehicles, that can't be for the cemetery.
Do you know where in the cemetery this road is? We have an overhead view of it.
I sent it Friday.
Yeah, it's hard to overlay the thing you sent Friday with the Google map. I think I know where it is. I think, Tony, you're right. It's this piece right here.
Well, Google Maps is wrong.
Well, it's wrong in that he calls it the wrong name, but the paths are correct, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's the road that goes from Harvester Ave, the far one. You'll see a building.
Yeah.
And the next, it's that road that goes from Harvester Ave right alongside that building.
Right.
And then it kind of bends over onto Webster Ave, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one we thought.
Yeah.
And that's the
I
only
couldn't
road
color it in.
access?
I tried everything. And finally, I just sent the other picture.
Is that the only entrance to the cemetery? Or is there?
Webster's the back.
But that's also on this road. There's no other entrance to the cemetery.
No, people could actually drive from St. Joseph over to Elmwood.
So there's a connection.
I've done
You
that
can come in
myself.
this way, and it's not showing you can get in there, but you can.
It's on, if they wanted to go through St. Joseph's, it's on Ellicott. But
Is
this is the best way for the bike path because it's like a straight line.
Cindy, is there any rush on this? Because, I mean, you've got a whole new agreement that I need to look at. Can we wait a month?
Well, he wants to start with the contract, with the bids, and seeing how, because and part of it's my fault. I got this on January 8th, and I got lost in my sea of emails, And he called me in February, and that's when I found it, and I started working on it right away. But they wanted to get bids out so that this could get progress.
Yeah,
I couldn't get it ready for the March board meeting.
I tell you, I have some issues. What this is going to be a road that's going to be used by both pedestrians, bicyclers, and the public visiting the cemetery, as well as the cemetery. And that poses some issues, but key to me is it poses liability issues. Somebody gets whacked on this road, all right? I understand in the report that the town is taking responsibility for that and insuring against it. But, and I'll direct this to you, Tony, if I'm going to have an easement, a grant, I'm going to want those responsibilities laid out to run with the land, because you got to be protected. I mean, even before, I don't even want to consider that unless we have belt.
It's in here.
Protection.
It's right. I mean, you obviously have to review it, but it's second to last paragraph on page 2. Here, take a look. Here, take a look. I assume this is the thing they're recording.
No, I don't think there's going to be droves of people on this, unless they have like a half marathon or something. Well, not even a half, maybe a 5K.
The lawyer answered to that.
4.8 miles.
The lawyer answer to that, Cindy, is it only takes one.
Exactly.
I understand. Is there any way that it could be contingent upon
I don't think so.
any of it?
This actually, I mean, I'm glad to see this language in here.
But all it does is it warrants that the town will take a protective liability property damage coverage. It doesn't set responsibility completely and release the grantor of any responsibility.
Defend and indemnify and hold harmless.
Where does it
Second
say that?
sentence. The grantor and successor shall not be liable.
Oh, I was reading the wrong paragraph. I was reading the liability paragraph. Probably did.
I mean, defend, indemnify, and hold harmless
All right.
means they're paying for
Yep,
the lawyer.
Yep, I got it.
I mean, the upshot is the cemetery will still be sued if anyone gets hurt, because
That's
it owns the
Of
property.
course, but the town will
But the
defend
cemetery
that suit.
needs to know that. I want to be sure that they know that.
Well, we have a representative of the cemetery who's available.
Right, Bob Carlson, and you got his phone number.
And I
Yeah.
noticed that this new agreement also, the old one did not explicitly say within the easement agreement who had the duty to maintain the premises. This says, where did I see it?
Dan, are you guys comfortable approving it subject to council's review? That way it doesn't necessarily have to come back
Yeah,
to
well,
you.
I'm waiting. We'll answer this question, then I have a couple more questions, and we'll see.
Probably be a little better. It says a grantee has the right to construct, maintain, and operate and repair. It doesn't say it has the duty. This is the last paragraph on the first page. And that's going to be an issue,
Wait a
especially with
minute.
vehicles. I mean,
Wait a minute, the new one that, where was that? I thought, the third paragraph, second page, grantee agrees to inspect the easement premises to determine adequacy, safety, fitness, and compliance with the laws. Do you see that?
Yes, okay.
Grantee agrees to maintain an improvement
Okay.
in a safe condition and keep the easement premises free from hazard. Town or city of Batavia will initially seal the roadway,
all right.
install a bike path symbol,
See, you got it all in there. Congratulations.
and then they want the town or city will provide all long-term maintenance of the roadway and above items as necessary for duration of easement.
Yeah, it
The
even
city of
says-
Batavia Police Department will patrol the trail and respond to any distress calls. Under no circumstances shall grantor be required to improve or in any way alter the easement premises as a result or in connection with the easement. Then I found a problem when they talked about shrubs, and I told them, if you go removing shrubs or trees on a lot owners, you have to have their permission, and they added that language in after.
I'll say this, Cindy, that's incredibly strong language. I'm impressed, but the the town agreed to all that.
So that's what the town supervisor told me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
So then when you questioned it, then I got to thinking, that was good because now it's in writing.
Cindy's tough. She
And
wants something. She gets it.
We make a good team,
I
Cindy.
had them,
And,
I had them put in, no trees or shrubs can be removed from a lot owner's lot without due notice and permission from them and the cemetery association.
excellent. You answered
That
some
was
of
a
my-
paragraph above it.
You cut some of my questions off, that's good.
But see, my concern was if there's a funeral, this is a cemetery, and if there's a funeral going in, now the town supervisor said they could close that off to anybody else coming in and make them wait till the funeral finishes. He doesn't care.
It's the unexpected stuff, though. I mean, people visit cemeteries on their own schedule,
Right.
right?
Right. I don't imagine this is going to be. Batavia isn't Buffalo, and even the Buffalo bike path, you could probably bowl down them any given day. So I don't think there's going to be droves. But I get it.
Just for the record, we don't approve of that.
Darn. Shuffleboard would be fun.
That's okay. That's definitely
And Cindy,
okay.
so you said, is it already in here, or is it going to language that you recited with respect to the use by, the public in the cemetery? Is that language going to be in here as well?
Yeah, after I sent the updated version, I got another one back because I started reading it and I got that concern, and he sent another one. So Lewis and Chet should have it in their email. A second.
Okay.
Richard Mike
I do, but I
should
think
have
we
another
printed
one.
out the previous one.
All right.
That,
So we have to clarify that if we're going to make a motion. All right.
with that language. Do you want me to fax this, or you got it?
No, I mean, we have no more access to fax than
No,
email
don't
here
worry
in the
about it.
board meeting.
Okay. Okay.
So if there's a funeral going on, he said he can close it off. Should there be
Yes.
a shall close it off rather than a can?
Yep.
Yeah. What I,
Well,
what
yes and no. I mean, if the
Emergency
funeral is
vehicles,
set up,
bicycles.
if the funeral is set up totally at the other end of the cemetery, there's no reason for them to.
It would be
fill
at
that
the
off.
election of the cemetery.
No, if this
That's
is
why I
only rolled
can't.
in, it's not where the cemetery, it's not where the funeral's conducting. It's traffic goes
Hypothetically,
in
the
and out.
funeral
No, we
is
don't.
not
We don't.
in,
We don't even have to discuss it. It'll be at the election of the cemetery.
so that's
Cemetery will take
so
care
we
of
don't
itself.
have to make it shall.
Right. The language that they put in as the revised one says it's in that said permanent easement. At the end of it, he put lot owners, visiting graves, cemetery, and cemetery equipment need to travel that road. And funeral processions must take a priority over all activity on that road.
That does,
That's what
does
they. That's
that
what they put
necessarily
in.
prohibit other vehicles, like emergency vehicles, from coming through?
No, the
Because some-
prohibition is something else.
Yeah, it's already in there. Emergency vehicles and municipal vehicles. Cemetery vehicles.
Right, and they added a sentence right after that, the one I just read you.
All right, I'm just kidding. We would also want to permit cemetery vehicles to access this road, correct?
Right, what they added after their the one revision, what they added on the second revision is lot owners, visiting graves, cemetery and cemetery equipment need to travel that road. And funeral processions must take a priority over all activity on that road.
Right,
So that,
I would actually amend that language to say the public visiting graves, not just lot owners, right?
well,
If I'm,
Yeah, right.
I'm not a lot owner, but my loved one is buried interred in the cemetery. I should be able to get in. So, just public visiting graves.
public.
Yep. I would also put in that cemetery vehicles.
That's there.
It is there?
Cemetery and cemetery equipment
Oh, okay, I missed that. All right.
need to travel.
Oh, cemetery and cemetery equipment? All right, we'll get the gist of it. Good. All right, got that. Next question is, it's got 2 years of not 2 years, 2 acres of burials left. How many years is that for the cemetery?
Oh,
They're not really selling that many.
So we got,
no. I was gonna say,
it's-
that's
they've
gonna
got
get
a lot
them
of
out.
mileage.
so I'm not worried about
Yeah.
reclamation in the roadway at this point.
They're not going to
Few
close
just-
their one road
few
in
lifetimes
to make room.
All right. and-
Whatever they're going to
and
close,
Cindy,
that
how
ain't
does
going to
this-
be it.
Maybe, I think I know your
Yeah.
answer, but how does this impact the adjoining lot owners? Or lot owners generally? Do you foresee any negative impact?
I don't really.
Okay.
I don't really.
Quite the contrary.
Cemetery, I think people going through might be good because they have had a lot of vandalism in the past.
Right.
The police
That was-
presence will be great. There's a factory on one side, so there aren't really neighbors, only like across the street. So I just, I went out, to be quite honest, I went out there not in favor of this at all. And by the time I got done talking with the president and the town supervisor, they turned me around.
All right. Anybody have further discussion or comments on this?
Can I recommend that it be contingent on
Yeah.
attorney review of the changes that the board's going to seek?
Yes, you can.
And that the board lay out what those changes are, so I don't miss any.
Yeah, and this is your good work, Cindy, because I think I would have been, this would have been difficult to approve without having the safeguards set forth in the easement. You did a good job getting them in there.
Thank you.
So, although we don't have the language in front of us, we can't directly amend it. So I'll motion as follows. Motion to approve, contingent upon the insertion in the grant of permanent easement of a license, if you will, to permit the public to visit graves, to prioritize cemetery needs over the use of the path, and that's, of course, inclusive of any funeral processions. And I think that's it. Oh, and to allow the cemetery to direct the closure of the path for funeral purposes or maintenance purposes.
Why don't we
As
just say
directed by the
closure of
cemetery.
path, since we use this phrase, cemetery needs, closure of path for cemetery needs.
Fine.
The town might have an issue with that.
This language is not, by the way, I'm not dictating the language,
Right.
this isn't substance. All right, and that such changes to the easement, if made, will be subject to division attorney's approval.
Division attorney or board attorney?
Division board, the god of all legal matters. will form
Council with a capital C.
I move to strike that last statement.
Motion on the table?
Good job, Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Tony, are you gonna work with,
Yes.
are you working with me or them?
Yeah, I'll work through you. Have them,
Tidy stuff?
yeah, I'll do an email to you setting forth what I'd like to see, just more fleshing out of what we just heard. And then they can present the documents to me through you.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, because they're right there in Albany, yeah, too. Okay, good. All right.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks, Cindy.
Good job.
Thank you.
That was awesome, thank
We'll
you.
miss you. We'll miss
Yeah,
you.
I haven't made the announcement yet. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
All right, let's get rid of Cindy while we can.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Cindy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There we go.
Beverly Hills is that,
That is tabled.
is
I
that
don't know why that's
tabled?
That is
I didn't
tabled.
start the calendar.
That is postponed till next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay, very good. Wow, okay. So we've come to the end of the agenda session. It is now time to open this up for any comments by the public. Anything anybody would like to address the board? And I know we have Pine Lawn here.
Justin Locke, Pine Lawn Memorial Park, I'm the president.
Justin, pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time to address the board. We have a project in front of us that we've had some continued dialogue on with the director of the division and the chair of the board. It's something that's a matter of pressing need because of the conditions on the property. So I'll boil everything down as best I can to try to be streamlined with it, but I'll elaborate wherever necessary. The real issue for us is that to get to where we think this is going, there's a considerable leap. And we have leased land before over to the golf course, but this looks like it's going to be somewhat of a different animal. And it's going to be not inexpensive to do it, and it's going to be time consuming. So the hope was to come here today and get some guidance from the board so that these efforts that we make are deliberate and efficient.
All right, so what are you intending to do? What's your vision on this?
We've got a 110-acre parcel of land that adjoins the bulk of Pine Lawn, but it's somewhat secluded. It's off on the east end. It's called Green Lawn East. 100 of the acres are undeveloped, and we have an issue over there with a number of things that I'll get to. The property itself is an asset. If you developed it today in today's dollars into cemetery land, you'd be talking about roughly $500 million in sales. And I checked. It's not 50. But we don't need it for 206 years. At least. That doesn't even include the golf course leased land. So in the meantime, what we have is crime, trespassing, quality of life issues that are affecting the neighbors, complaints. It's hurting our reputation. The complaints have gotten up to the division, and I could go at length about the efforts that we've tried to make to secure the property, but it's a big piece of property, and these kids and adults have nothing but time, and they don't apparently have a lot of alternatives for riding all-terrain vehicles. So it's a liability that I worry about, and I think it's a matter of time until something regrettable happens over there. And so I made a shift eventually as the problem continued to persist from trying to spend the least amount of Pine Lawn's monies to come up with an effective solution to following the golf course model and looking for a way to potentially make money and put these problems to bed. And we brought in 3 national real estate firms, commercial brokers, and talked about the project with them. And they all agreed that it's a very valuable piece of property with an immediate need. They could see lease payments to Pine Lawn of $2.5 to $5.5 million a year with built-in escalators of 8 to 10% every 5 years. It could create a tax base off that property of $3.4 to $4 million, which is badly needed by the local school district. So in initial conversations with local elected officials and that school's board, the response was very positive. Selling the land right now doesn't really appeal to us. The brokers in some very, candid conversations said, look, one guy said, I've been doing this for 25 years in this area and I've never seen a piece of property like this come to potential lease. It's 100 acres. It's on the Nassau-Suffolk border. This is a very rare opportunity, and it's going to create a lot of attention in our industry, which could be very good for Pine Lawn in terms of attracting the most revenue stream from it.
And what's the objection to selling the land? I imagine it would command a pretty good price.
Well, it's unimproved land sitting there right now, and the highest best use is in all likelihood selling it for cemetery use, selling it for graves. $500 million would be hard to match over there.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I think we could get somewhat of a cake and eat it scenario to where we can leave that property over there, maintain control over it, but generate substantial income off of it in the meantime for Pine Lawn.
And what was the planned use that you're contemplating?
We really tasked them to come back with what they felt would be the highest best use, and that's industrial. That would be manufacturing and warehousing. It's become so valuable locally, I think the unoccupied rate is about 2.6%, that they're actually gutting office space, which was historically more valuable because there's such a need. This is all kind of an urban push out of the city where these old warehouses are becoming trendy restaurants or residences. So the sprawl's coming our way, and they don't think it's a market that's going to diminish anytime soon. So if there's high ceilings in a building, they'll actually gut it and convert to this. And there was a piece of property locally that went to market and sold for kind of setting the high water mark recently around the corner. So they're urging us to act on this while everything seemingly is in our favor if we can get everything lined up and get approvals
Right,
for
so you
it.
said industrial, did you mean light industrial or
It's really light industrial. They signify it, I think, heavy industrial and industrial.
okay, so
It's
that's
planned
it.
industrial park, or what the town of Babylon, our local township, calls G industrial zoning.
Okay. So it doesn't permit smelting.
No, I read the list at first. I said, my God, this is never going to work.
So
But,
what does that mean?
yeah,
All
it
right.
was actually what was excluded, and so we would follow the town's code.
Now, what's it zoned now for?
Residential light.
Okay. So you would anticipate a conversion?
We'd have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does residential in your area permit for cemetery use?
It does.
Now, what is the golf course deal? Who owns the golf course?
Golf course is owned by a group of investors. My father's the primary.
And they're leasing from the cemetery?
Yes.
And how, part of the course or the whole course?
The whole course, 225 acres.
Okay, so what's the term of that lease?
They'll be up, I think that was 75 years. So they've got, 50, 60 years left on that.
And then that would revert if you needed it. And what do you anticipate the term on the industrial lease to be?
50 to 99 years is what's been contemplated, to give them the kind of length they're amortized out the construction costs.
All right. So what are you looking for from the board today?
I need some guidance. I would just like to be deliberate to hear if there's anything that's inherently concerning with this. I'd like to get an idea of how best to stay in contact so that we don't end up just coming together with considerable money spent, a draft lease that is flawed, that needs reworking, where we have to go back to the drawing board and spend more money.
Well, each project stands on its own. And obviously, the board can't say, oh, this is great, it's approved, just come to us and bring us the papers. I think what you can say, and I'll invite discussion, all right, if anybody's, in fact, before I even say anything, further questions or anything that you'd like Justin to answer?
Well, if someone were to lease the property and walk away at some point because it didn't work out, whatever their business was, would there be something written in the contract or the lease that says that they'd have to restore it to its original condition and get rid of these monstrosity buildings that they built and return it to a state where you could use it as a cemetery?
Yeah, good question. That's really been one of the two initial kind of guttural concerns. Any type of environmental impact that would have to be mitigated, and getting the leaser to pick up the tab, as well as removing the structures. So the good part of this is from what we're hearing, we're going to be dealing with big companies with a lot of funding that we should be able to negotiate on the way in and get the protections for pine lawn necessary to let us
Also,
sleep at night.
Justin, I know you mentioned this when we spoke a while back. I don't know if this is still true, but that it's at least conceivable, if not certain, that the buildings would be adaptable for mausoleum use.
These are steel frame buildings, and as time's gone on, mausoleums are not just, they kind of went from poured in place to prefab concrete, and now steel buildings are being used. So that option's out there. You could have, maintenance out of these buildings. So I think we'd reserve the right to pick and choose. If we want them all removed, we'll have to remove them. Certainly we'll benefit from some of the structures, the electric, the roads, the clearing.
That's a great question, because that's been a concern of the board before, and we've actually stipulated for the cemetery in some of these agreements that's at the election of the cemetery, and that'll be a topic of discussion when you present your package, no question. And if you're looking for guidance, some of the guidance would be we probably want to see some fiscal backup to the removal. In other words, whether it be bonded or something, because you're going to have huge buildings potentially, depending on the project. Don't know what the project is yet, right? But yeah, that was good. I don't know.
Well, we could set aside funding, though, or a part of the part of the fund is a restricted fund with the cemetery to guarantee the performance.
Right, if you're not satisfied with the security, you could take some of your lease proceeds and put it aside.
A lot of ideas, but that's the kind of thing that we'll be going through. So I think you can tell by the nature of the questions, it's not a non-starter, all right? And I think that's what you were looking for. You don't want to invest lots of money in this to be told that we're not letting you go light industrial. That's crazy. It's not crazy, all right? It lives or dies on the benefit that can be accrued for the cemetery. So if you present a good project and satisfy the board, you're going to get a good answer. If the board thinks it's a lousy project, you're going to get a bad answer.
One thing to.
But it's not a non-starter, is my point. All right, there's nothing that you've given us. All right, that there's a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, that can't be done. All right, it's certainly it's just dependent on what you give us.
Two more things to think about. Number one is obviously the law has changed since the golf course lease was signed, and I think what would be a non-starter is if your lessee ends up having any relationship to anyone on the cemetery side. That ain't happening.
Yeah.
Well, we're hoping FedEx takes it, and we do actually ship through FedEx. But
That's good enough. And then the second question is, I think the board may will want some rather robust analysis explaining why it's not more appropriate to sell the property outright, and that there will be no negative impact on the cemetery from them retaining the property.
I think I should append all the comments with, I just heard about this week. I immediately put together a list of 10 concerns. I haven't shared that with the board members. So everything you've heard today is subject to, their review of the issues that I have and my concerns. So
That's fine.
Yeah.
We can, and you can share them with us.
Right.
And all right.
I mean, I see this as a tremendously beneficial and impactful project for Pine. I don't know if there's anything I'll do in my time there that would eclipse the benefit that could be had from this. My question would be, where or when can we check back with you and keep the dialogue open so that as things surface, as developments happen, maybe we can get feedback?
Well,
can I just is this going to be a single lease, or you expect multiple tenants?
Well, we would hope, I mean, the benefit would be what this property brings that others don't locally is that large opportunity for somebody that needs a bigger space than is on the market that's out there. And when you're talking the vacancy rate that exists, it sounds like a pretty tight market. So that would be great. That could drive in, more value to it. But we're going to have to kind of leave it to whoever we lease to, and then who they lease beyond that. We'll have protections in order, but they're going to have to market it.
The idea is you lease to someone who's going to operate it as an industrial park, and that entity has individual leases for the actual occupants.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, just generally, when we've had cemeteries sell property that's adjoining where lots are, the board's been very concerned about knowing what's going in there before they approve the sale, at least restrictions as to what's going in, so it's not nothing obnoxious to the lot owners. I don't know how you do that here, because when you present this, you're not going to know who the ultimate occupants are going to be.
Right.
That's a very significant concern, I think.
What we envisioned was trying to frame it in using the town code, and then maybe putting in a caveat to where if the town code over time constrains for whatever compelling reasons they have, they'd have to follow that, and comply with that. If the town code were to expand, we'd have to approve anything that got added to the menu before they could occupy within those recently allowed practices in there. But if we sell, that's the least control we have, unless we're going to put a lot of covenants on the sale, and that's just going to drive down the value.
Yeah, I would think that in negotiating, and this is way far, way far down the road, but in negotiating your contract, that you would put restrictive covenants in. obligations, to not lease out sublease for noxious uses, and that could be further defined in excess of any zone.
We also could have, since we approve leases, we could have a situation where the board ends up approving every lease of every occupant, because those are subleases of the main lease. And
I don't know if we'd
that, I don't know.
want to get involved in that if we
If
can
the cemetery
avoid.
board has jurisdiction over leases of cemetery land, those are leases of cemetery land down to the bottom. Right?
I would think we'd want to avoid that if we could.
Is it a matter of?
Well, this is way far down the road, but
Right.
these are some of the issues, all right? And it's good that you're hearing. With respect to your question, how do I keep the board apprised of this? My advice is to talk with the division, talk with Lewis, all right? Let him know what you're doing, how you're doing, and Lewis can make a determination as to whether it's appropriate for you to come before the board. You're always welcome, by the way. At least, public session, you can always come and talk to the board. That just is, all right? But I understand that you want to be welcomed and you want the words to be appreciated. So I would confer with Lewis and get a sense from him. And Lewis is in constant communication, obviously,
And he's been at the
at
property.
least with me.
I have been there.
We did the tour.
That's
It's a far
right.
tour.
That's right. So a short answer, again, it's not a non-starter, all right? But there are issues. And by keeping in touch, perhaps you can work those issues out before you get it and then get told you got to do it a different way. And I think that's why you're here.
Yeah.
So that's great. That's great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nothing.
Anybody else for public session?
When's the conference, Dave? May 17th?
May 7th.
7th and 8th.
May 7th and 8th. At the Desmond.
Ooh.
So we're,
All right.
we're 5/7, May 7th?
So the May board meeting will be May 7th. We ought to set an April date as well.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind.
All right. April date. What do you want? Third Thursday to,
Yeah,
Late?
3rd is going to be close.
yeah.
I mean, I guess we're looking at April 12th or 19th. Those are Thursdays, right? Does anybody have any issues with any of those?
What do you throw out?
April 12th or April 19th?
Isn't the 12th too soon?
12th would mean,
Yeah, I have an issue with the 12th.
so let's do the
19th?
19th. Oh, no, I cannot do the 19th. I could do
How about the 18th? How about Wednesday?
Wednesday. What do I have on Wednesday? I think I have something on. Hold on a sec. Hold on a second. I think the 18th is fine. I just want to check.
18th is really good.
18th is no good? How
No
about,
good?
how about the 17th?
Yep.
Let me check my work thing. And where's my calendar hiding?
I've written down several dates already. I'm not writing down another date.
April 17th, other than that's the day that taxes are due, is fine by me.
Good, good. April 17th,
Is that final? Is that your final answer?
10:30 here. Yeah, sure is. Now, I have an announcement to make.
No, you don't. You're not allowed.
This is most likely my last meeting as chair of the cemetery board.
Ooh.
I will be retiring. I'm an old guy, and I'm happy to be one. So I wanted to thank our cemeterians and our spokespeople and the contact I've had with cemeterians throughout my tenure. It's been quite a while. I never thought when I was a kid that, actually I did. I said, that's what I want to be. I want to be chair of the New York State Cemetery Board. And I got my wish. No, it's been wonderful. I think we've done some great things. Lewis, we've done great things together. I think that Rich Fishman and I did some great things together, and the board. It's just been a wonderful experience, and I want to thank you all. Now, I may, with that being said, perhaps I'm around for the next meeting, perhaps not. it's on the tail end, but I sort of don't think so. So, again, thanks, everybody. Thank you out there in TV land. And that is it.
How many years have you got?
I've got
On the
in
board.
state service. Oh, and board? I think.
You
Louis,
said
I told you
1999, so
19.
19.
1999. So that's
I'd like to thank you.
ridiculous.
So,
Yeah.
for your service.
I have to say, I've worked with you for 10 of those years.
Yeah.
I came to Division 10 years ago last October.
Wow.
And it's just been wonderful and amazing to work with you. You've definitely made me a better lawyer.
That's because I don't like lawyering myself. See, I gave it to you. I said, I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You know, when I first took the board chair, the first step was Frank Milano, great guy. Frank won't be watching this, I know. And Frank asked me, Dan, we have a vacancy. You know, do you want to be board chair or counsel? And I had been counsel to the board for some years before that. On a break. And I said, Frank, I don't want to work that hard. I'll be chair. And
Dan, if I can say, I think after you, Mike and I are the longest ones coming to the board. But since I've been on board at the end of 2002, if this was your domain, your home, it was an honor working with you, and you always made everyone welcome. And you brought a level of professionalism I don't think I've seen before. So
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if you call it professionalism, but I've enjoyed the heck out of it. So, that being said, anything else? Thanks.
Well, I'm not gonna
And look,
say
Walk
anything.
away.
I'm not gonna say anything because we have a small presentation for you downstairs after we wrap up the executive session.
All right, I'll accept that. Anybody else? All right, so I will motion to go into, and we only need 2 votes, into executive sessions for investigative and litigative matters.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. All right, let's take a short break, and then we'll reconvene.
Make it very short.
Very short.
that's muted.
State law making most prohibited providing you any value, so I have to provide you something that's priceless. So, enjoy your day, because you have your own.
Oh, look at that. Oh, thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, Supervisor Fleming.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Does that mean he has to go to the town of Nassau?
Yeah. Can I put this on my windshield?
There you go.
Do you want to move the camera?
All right,
The other way, the other hour.
so we have
We're not on film yet.
Oh.
It's turning.
deprived the world of my visage. There we go.
Are you sure we're back on? All right, let me see.
Recording.
Yep, we're there.
Wait, I think we may still
we
be
go.
muted. There, good.
Okay.
Lean in.
So we've exited executive session. We have two resolutions to report. One, we've referred a matter to the Attorney General involving Lake Ronkonkoma. And we have also referred a matter to the Attorney General for appropriate action concerning Niagara Falls Cemetery. Niagara Falls Cemetery, the form of the order is to be approved by council, board and division council, and it will be executed thereafter.
And in both cases, there was a motion, a second, and unanimous approval.
Absolutely true.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much, and now I will motion to adjourn.
Second. I'm in favor.
I am too. Thank you all.
Aye.
Here,
Aye. All right. Thanks very much, everybody.
He said I am too.